welcome back to the NCMU podcast, where we are dedicated to raising up the next generation of nerd culture ministers and missionaries. I'm one of your hosts, Mark from Lux Digital Church, and with me today, I am joined by none other than the legendary Andy Mage.
Oh, legendary. Wow.
Yeah, this is my tour of our staff, Andy, which has been great. You're number two.
Congrats.
Well, not number two in priority or importance, just number. We did Dalton already.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm not going to get offended. Although number two, that brings up some like maybe we just say B. Maybe just go with B.
B.
Yeah.
Does well, we won't go there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, anyway, this is going to be an interesting episode because on every other one, I'm like learning about somebody, and in this one, we've worked together for last 2.5 years
ish. Yeah, at least 2. Yeah.
Yeah, at least 2 years. You're the creative pastor at Lux. Tell us a little about yourself for anybody who doesn't know you. Maybe they want to, get to know a little bit of your background and a little bit of your story and how you ended up on staff at Lux.
Yeah, man. I've been a pastor for this is my 16th year of vocational full-time ministry. For about 10 years, I was a worship pastor. I'm currently residing in Tampa, Florida, but I was a worship pastor up in southern New Jersey and then in Atlanta for 7 or 8 years, and then took a call to become the digital pastor for a large multi-site church here in Tampa, and moved down here in 2019, right before the COVID pandemic. And so we like to say we were like 8 months before all of the stuff happened and everybody went digital. And so, yeah, I was heading up I was the digital pastor for their online campus, and that was great. And all those other things. Learned a whole lot about digital, learned a whole lot about engagement and the creative process that comes into everything past worship, because worship is, music and website and graphics and, you do the things. But when you start to then turn everything away from music and into like an entirety of digital, there's a lot there. And then COVID hit, and then the entire world shut down in 2020, and we kind of flourished there and learned a whole lot in that season. And then I synced up with a little upstart church called Lux Digital Church back in what was that, 2023 maybe, that I started hanging out?
2022? Certainly 22, right? I think that we met.
It was, because I actually interviewed you for a podcast in April of 2022. And then I had already kind of been stalking Lux for like maybe a week or something prior to that. And then just, you couldn't get rid of me. And I've been around Lux ever since. And joined up part-time on the staff a little bit after that, just as kind of like the part-time worship guy and creative guy. And then was really blessed to be honored by a full-time job offer to join up with the Lux Digital Church staff, and started over a year ago now, and we're in 2025. So right at the beginning of 2024. And here we are, man, as the creative pastor doing all sorts of stuff that creative and worship pastors always do, which is anything that you need to. If it's music, you do music. If it's website, you do website. If it's graphics, you do graphics. It's the other duties as assigned that I think we're all used to as ministry workers and pastors. So here we are in February of 2025.
Yeah, but I think the duties as assigned is more like it used to be. That was the case for youth pastors in ministry, right?
Yeah.
Like the youth pastor somehow also became the graphic designer, somehow also became the worship leader, somehow
the
also
ProPresenter admin.
Yeah, he was running ProPresenter with a foot pedal while on guitar. And then he also is sort of responsible for all college ministry and children's ministry oversight as well.
Yep.
And he was also like the lead actor in VBS.
Yep.
I feel like that has changed in the church culture in general. I know the last church that I worked for, that was certainly not the case. And instead, what has happened is the catch-all has become the media office, right? Because I think the church culture as a whole, not church culture, but like the church in the culture as a whole has needed to design a lot more graphics. It's needed to create a lot more production. Yeah. And I think that's definitely true at Lux. You do a lot of different things. You wear a lot of different hats. So talk to me about just a couple of the hats that you wear at Lux and what it is that you oversee there.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about Lux, and you've already talked to Dalton about this, he wears a lot of hats. I think you, obviously, as the lead pastor, wear an enormous amount of hats. And then I tend to float a little bit more onto the tech and creative side. And so one of the big things I do is we've been raising up a worship team, an asynchronous worship team, also kind of a live worship team, although it was around a little bit prior, kind of came in and helped with that. But asynchronous worship is an interesting beast that I don't think a lot of people even know about, let alone are trying. And so we're blessed to be able to tackle that with people literally all over the country, and used to be all over the world until one of our singers moved into the States. But, so we're doing worship, but also doing a lot of graphics and a lot of animation, surprisingly, like more animation than I thought I was going to be doing. Which is cool because it's a lot of fun. Also, on top of all that, just doing some streaming things like that, and really
website design.
Website design and logo refreshes and branding and color schemes and just kind of working in that department. And one of the cool things is Dalton actually he comes from. So if I'm assuming this episode's coming out after the episode with Dalton, Dalton came from like a print and graphic design background as well. And so I didn't come from graphic design. I came from web design. And so we're able to kind of Captain Planet our powers in a lot of that. He doesn't know any of the technical stuff. I know a lot of that technical stuff. And then the actual stuff that like looks good to my eyes, sometimes I have to go to him and be like, hey man, how do I do this? And then he'll show me how to do it. And then from there on out, I'm able to program it and kind of do it. So he and I work very well together in that aspect. That's kind of one of the big things that we're doing around here. And also just video. The medium of digital ministry is heavily reliant on video and audio. And so I'm doing a lot of video, including social media clips and kind of helping out with those teams and taking care of those teams. But even outside of that, man, just like cutting video and shooting video and helping with live streaming video and all of that. And I got to tell you, I was having lunch with my brother yesterday, and he was asking me how everything at Lux was going. And I said, like, man, I'm doing a lot of things that I didn't think I was going to be doing. And I'm loving all of those things. It just kind of fits in my wheelhouse and my experiences in 16 years of ministry. And, oh, by the way, preaching and leading small groups and getting the chance to, do the pastor thing, taking care of people and praying for people. So that's an umbrella. There's a lot of little things in there, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the thing that is really unique about ministry and online space, right? Whether you're a digital missionary or you're thinking about launching an online church, especially if it's going to be in the gaming community, it is this unique combination of ministry and content creation, right?
Yeah.
There's a blending between the two. It's not exclusively ministry because in a normal physical ministry, people experience you as a person usually a lot quicker, right? It's also not purely content creation because you're not just creating things for people to consume.
Right.
You're creating content with the intention of entering into relationship with them and inviting them to come and get to know you. And so those two things, there are really important principles from the world of ministry that must be involved in what you're doing. And there are very important principles in the world of content creation that also must be involved in what you're doing. And you really oversee all content design. What do we call the three? Content design and worship.
Yes.
Like those are the three main areas that you oversee, but those things are vast, right? In scope and in terms of like what those things could mean and what they could do, from videography to photography to web design to all of the things that you just mentioned. And this is just, we work together, so this is just my genuine curiosity. What over the last year do you think has like stretched you the most? That was like, you got the task and you're like, I am going to have to learn how to do this from the ground up.
Nothing from the ground up necessarily. There's two things that we're doing right now. One of them has been kind of a pet project. And that is, and it was leading more towards some stuff we were doing with YouTube. And then I've kind of backed off of that and I've let it lay fallow for a little bit. But have been working on essentially our own web-based app for content classroom teaching, which is a very convoluted thing. And I can get into it if you want, but essentially it's just, I was trying to create an asynchronous platform for teaching people that would allow like a first step into like a small group, or a first step into church life, or a first step. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Like I wanted to kind of crack that top layer of discipleship for people that were joining us like on demand. You know, they'd see some piece of our content or whatever. And it's a leap. It's a huge leap to try to get people from watching a video to into a Discord and into a relationship. Like there's a lot of steps that have to happen in there. And so I was trying to get somewhere in the middle there where I could get them to learn a little bit more about, you know, create some videos, create some content, whatever, learn a little bit more about Jesus, about what it means to follow the Lord, what it means to, you know, again, discipleship, but also to like almost have like a 101, 201, 301 type of scenario for what Lux is, for what digital ministry is, for what we're trying to do, for where you can hang out. Just so, you know, one of the things that's missing in digital ministry, I think a lot of times, is that sort of welcoming face at the front door when you walk into a church. It's very easy to know who newcomers are because they have to walk into a place. And so then you can give them the coffee mug or the bag with the pencil and the journal and the book in it, you know, the thing. You can invite them to the coffee bar. Well, online, if we're streaming a service, we have to try to get them on a lurk. And that's fine. Like, you know, there are some things that we can do, especially in live streams, but when they're watching on demand, unless they want to comment on a YouTube video or, you know, react to a post, we don't know that they're there. And so if I can get that first step there where it's like, hey, come join us, and this is at your own pace, that's a thing. So I've been working on that, just kind of off and on. I put out like it's called an MVP, a minimum viable product. I had a little bit of coding inspiration, and I really had to like brush up on my coding again. I hadn't done any programming, hadn't done any of that for a long time. So that's the first one. And the second one has been animating. A lot of the animating that I've done over the last 5 years has just been simple little tasks inside of videos. Because at Bayhope, we had just an amazing cinematography team, particularly one dude who was just really good at it. And so I could say, hey, I'm thinking about this. And he'd go, cool. He'd go to the lab, and then, you know, 3 or 4 days later, he'd deliver me the assets that I needed. We don't have that. Like I'm that guy on our team. And so I kind of had to learn that. And that's actually been way more fun than anything else, is learning how to create lower thirds that are actually engaging, and how to make it so it's not stale, and like how to actually do it so you could do it efficiently and not just spend like all stinking day looking at one picture because it's just going to drive you crazy. Those have been the two biggest things. And honestly, the other big thing has actually, and this is going to sound really weird, has actually been like how to do real life ministry. And we can get into this if you want as well, but like digital ministry, there's like the second you're on a call with somebody, there's a lot of barriers that drop very quickly. And I think a lot of people would think it'd be the opposite because we're, you know, digital, you can remain anonymous and all that other stuff. But if people actually want to take a step and meet with you, there's a very real possibility that you're going to hear their entire life story very quickly. Yep. And I was not used to that, especially in the hybrid environment I was in Bayhope, because Bayhope still kind of had that. Bayhope was the church I was at, by the way. They still had that mentality, that sort of physical church mentality, just doing it in a digital front. And so there was still some of those little boundaries and barriers, but with an all digital church like we're doing at Lux, man, let's go. If somebody gets on a call with you, it's like, let's go.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so I want to get into a little bit of this idea of when somebody experiences you as a digital missionary, as whatever, they are probably experiencing layers of design, video, content, whatever, before they actually begin to experience you or have any opportunity to build a relationship with you, which is the case in the physical church, right? I would oftentimes say in my previous church, Pastor Chris was the lead pastor, but Pastor Brad was the creative pastor. And Pastor Brad had his finger on everything from the wood wall in the Welcome Center to the design and fonts of our signage, to the design of the lighting, to the design of the backdrops on staging, to the projectors that are used in the main room, to the chairs that are used in the sanctuary. His hand was on all of that. And so before you ever got to the sermon to hear Pastor Chris speak, you had actually experienced Pastor Brad probably 50 times already.
Yep.
And so in a very similar way, before anybody hears me teach or preach, even though I'm the lead pastor, people experience what you, and what's really unique is in our case, it's you and Dalton and Greg, right? It's really a trio. And I'm actually the one with the least hands-on when it comes to what people experience leading up to experiencing our church in terms of our staff. So with all that being said, there's so many layers of people's experience with your content, whether you're a digital missionary or digital church, before they ever get a chance to experience you. And there's probably at least a dozen opportunities for them to decide, I don't want to meet this person. I don't want to build a relationship with them. I don't want to be engaged here before they ever get to you. So talk to me a little bit about some of your design philosophy and ideas around what people experience in the story that we're telling before they ever get to meet a staff member or a person from our church.
Yeah. First off, though, how does that feel as the lead pastor to know that you have kind of a trio of, I mean, we're numbskulls, but a trio of people behind you that are like supporting you and making you, making the church look a certain way? Is that terrifying for you, or is that just you kind of got a YOLO and just let your hands off the wheel?
On the contrary, I love that. Okay. Right. I think mostly it's because I am keenly aware of the fact that I have an eye for things and no know-how on how to produce it. And so I have an idea of what I want to see, and I have no way to accomplish what I want to see. And to be honest with you, I'm an aging hipster. And as an aging hipster, right, as a skinny jeans wearing youth pastor, my style and vibe simply does not go well with Twitch or with what other people want, which is, our church's name was saved by my wife from what I would have named it, which would have been some Greek word, it would have been a little bit more cryptic and hipster. And so in some ways, you, Dalton, and Greg, with you at the helm, save our church from my bad design ideas. And so for that, I am very thankful. I've always been, I think, the type of leader that wants to bring people on my team to think about things that I no longer have to think about. And in so many ways, the design of our church, the direction and the experience that people have leading up to us are just things that I don't have to think about anymore, which I freaking love. Yeah. So yeah, no, it's been nothing but a blessing for me to have other people at the helm of designing the experience people have before they ever get to meet me. But tell me a little bit about some of your theory behind that, why that matters to you, and some of the things that go into that. Because there's a lot of decision points between point A. We can't get into all of the nuance, but there's a lot of decision points. Do you have like a guiding philosophy on some of that stuff?
Yeah. So the guiding philosophy actually is when you're in a digital medium like we are, especially a visually stimulating environment like Twitch is, and I hate to use that word stimulating, but it is. I mean, you go to Twitch and you open up that homepage, and by and large, a lot of things look the same. There's a lot, that's the same sort of color. It's a lot of purples. It's a lot of blues. It's a lot of unmade beds behind people. There's a lot of like stuff happening there that by and large looks the same. So the biggest kind of thing that we want to do is distinguish ourselves there. Lux has had a look, like even before I came, Lux had a look. Greg has been doing just a bang up job. If you don't know Greg, have you interviewed Greg? Are you going to interview him?
No, he'll be the third one. So you guys will get to meet Greg. He's our video director. He's going to be talking about how to tell stories through video shooting and editing.
He is brilliant at that. He's young. He's hungry. He is an entirely huge blessing in and of itself. I have nothing but respect for him. And the fact that we get to work with him each and every day is awesome. He set up a lot of the look and the feel of the video side of things before I got here and before I was kind of taking over the creative stuff. One of the things that we've been doing is guiding our church away from the purples and the blues and the flashing LEDs and all of those other things, because we want to present ourselves as not necessarily more mature, not aloof or anything like that, but we want to distinguish ourselves as more of a safe place. We're not going to try to overawe you with our headshots, and we're not trying to like show you how elite we are at video gaming. Instead, we're trying to provide a little bit of spiritual support. And to do that, you need to be a little bit more calm, but at the same time, you need to be bold in what you're doing. One of the things that Greg and I have been actually working towards over the last really 3, but mostly 6 months, is getting to solid color schemes. You can see behind me, I've got this, and if you're watching on video, great. You can see behind me, I've got this sort of like gradient that's happening, but it's a natural gradient. There's no forced light on my other side. I'm going from a very nice kind of orange-ish to black, and that's on purpose. If you watch any of our services, you'll see behind Mark or Dalton or myself, whoever's preaching, we're very intentional about the colors that we're choosing and the way we're setting things up. We want to be bold, but we want to be approachable. We want to make sure that people understand that we're not going to be spouting political nonsense about anything. We're not trying to shock and awe. We're trying to bring the actual word of God to people directly to them via their phones or tablets or computers or however they're engaging with us. So that's kind of the overriding thing. Now, we've also been going through, and we are going through right now, a brand refresh. And that's nothing, that is no slam on any of the original Lux branding or anything like that. It's time. We're 4 years into Lux.
Now, my friend Christian will never listen to this. Hey, your brand sucks, man. No, I'm just joking.
Delete. I'm just going to delete all of it.
Yeah, my good friend Christian originally created our brand, but we've been going back to the drawing board on a lot of stuff, and recreating some of that, which has been really fun.
Yeah, and the thing we've been doing with that, and kind of the charge I gave to myself and Dalton and Greg as we've been working on things, is, hey, bold but approachable. We want to be bold, and so you'll see a lot of it's bold. We are some of the newer things that we are rolling out. It's bold. Like, it's simple and it's plain, but it's also very bold. And we've cleaned up the actual original star logo that Lux has been using. There was some things that were off and some dimensions that were off. We've cleaned that up. We've really simplified the color palette down to essentially 3 main colors, which is good. We're kind of operating under some of the golden thirds rules in the things we're doing as with our colors. There's a definite choice that's being made there. But even outside of all of that, we want to make sure that people immediately recognize who we are. The original Lux branding was a little thin. The actual Lux mark itself, not Mark next to me, but the mark itself was a little wispy, a little thin. Mm-hmm. And when you looked at the actual word Lux, some things tended to get lost. There was some hashes, and the font that was used was kind of broken up. And instead, I kind of made the choice to make everything a little bit more strong, a little bit more bold. That's not appealing to masculine sensibilities or feminine sensibilities or anything like that. That's not where we're going. Instead, we want to make sure that people know who we are and know that we're somebody that you can trust. And that's kind of been the big thing there. Now, the other key decision point that has to come in is that when you're designing anything for a digital medium, you also have to know that people are mostly engaging with you through visuals, not through audio, although audio is by and large as huge a thing. If you have bad audio, people are going to turn you off immediately.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and we've been working on that, but the video side of things, we've really been working on. I'm designing new lower thirds and have been kind of reprocessing some of the way we do our announcement slides and the way we do our actual visuals, knowing that, we don't necessarily want to just chuck everything out all at once. This is not a move fast and break things philosophy. There's a reason people have engaged with us over the last 4 years, and if they've not been turned off by visuals, great. And so we're gonna turn the ship slowly. I'm not just gonna one day just pull the plug and everything's happening, but we are also going to celebrate some of this. And so at our birthday party, and at the end of March, we're going to be talking about this, and people are going to unveil this. But really, we've been sprinkling some of these things in over the last month anyway, trying to tell the story of, hey, this is the same Lux. Like, we're not changing, we're not just going, some of the biggest refreshes and rebrands that have ever happened have gone awfully because people just go, ew, wait a minute. Like, no, I don't know what you're doing there. And there's also a reason that, you look at Coca-Cola, has been around for 150 years. The actual brand has been around for about 150 years. By and large, it has not changed a lot. People can trust what Coca-Cola is. And we're not Coke, but we are trying to be trustable and approachable with what we're doing.
Yeah, I love that. And I think all of that speaks to, if you're listening in and you're streaming to a handful of people, or maybe you're pushing for partner right now, or maybe you're praying through, launching a new church online, or you're, thinking about going into nerd ministry in some other capacity. The brand that you use communicates a lot about who you are. And so don't just whip something up really, really fast. It's worthy of putting in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing. I said just a couple minutes ago, I did not create our first brand. I think that our first branding look has been really strong and it served us really, really well. But our church has evolved and changed and grown. And as a product of that, our brand and our style and our look needs to change, evolve, and grow with it. And I think the biggest thing that I took out of all of that, Andy, was the word intentionality. And although you didn't use that word in that, you spoke it through everything that you said, which was, your brand's probably not going to be our brand, but your brand better be intentional, and the content that you put out had better be intentional. Okay, let's talk about somebody as we're landing the plane here. Let's talk about somebody who they're thinking about getting into this, right? This is literally me right now, right? I'm getting ready to launch a new YouTube page to do some Star Wars stuff. Yep. I was just showing you a logo for the YouTube page. I'm mulling it over. If someone was looking to start this, whether it be on Twitch or on YouTube or podcast or whatever, what are some of the things that you would pay attention to first, or questions that you would ask and you would want to have answers for before you just, started tossing stuff out there?
Yeah. The biggest thing right now in our busy media culture is less is more. The start with whatever you think is on your heart to do, and color palette, and we can talk about that in a second, but throw whatever you got into, you just go to Canva or wherever, just get something out real quick and just put it down, and then almost divide it in half. We've done that with Lux, where we're kind of simplifying some things, and we've looked at our entire kind of package of everything that we had, colors and assets and all that stuff, and we've essentially chopped it in half. A lot of people are going to say, well, that's boring, but to be intentional, you need to intentionally choose things. And if you've got 14 different assets and 14 different colors and 7 different fonts that you're using over 6 different mediums, you can't be intentional about any one of those. And you're also going to confuse people. So less is going to be more in that, in look and feel, in everything. It's also going to probably feel a little boring to you. I don't want to look at my brand and get like a flutter of excitement. This is kind of the Christian mentality of the long, slow obedience, or the long obedience in the same direction.
Yeah.
This is the same thing of you need to look at your brand and understand that this is going to take me somewhere. I don't want my heart to flutter, because your heart's not always going to flutter in a month or 6 months. You're going to chase another shiny object. Stick with something a little more minimal, a little more practical. So that's number one. Number two, go to some place like Color. It's like there's a couple of O's in there. Just Google like color palette generator, and look at some of the color palettes that are out there. Look at the ones that speak to you. I'm not saying use those color palettes that are out there, but this is one of the things. Like, people have been branding things and marketing things since the dawn of Adam and Eve walking into the garden. That Satan was trying to market the apple or the fruit. That's just human nature. We want to sell things to people. Go to some of these color palette generator places and look at the color palettes, and you'll notice 2 things immediately. You notice there's a lot of like feelings and emotions that are being evoked. Reds and oranges evoke one emotion, blues and greens evoke something, purples and yellows kind of, your brand is going to speak something with the colors you choose. And it's not for me or Mark or anybody to tell you what's right or wrong. That is on your heart. But go to these color palettes and notice how they make you feel, and B, notice that there's usually between 3 to 5 colors, and 2 of those colors are usually a light primary and a dark primary, meaning like a black and a white. So really, you only have like 3 colors to pick from, and that's by design. The human brain gets very confused when you're looking at a lot of colors. Just go there and start to do your research a little bit. Play around with some colors. Those palette generators, you can generate 15 palettes at a time. And kind of the other thing is, if you don't know what you're doing, go to find a professional. Go to Fiverr and pay somebody $10 just to create a really cheap logo for you. It's gonna suck. It's gonna be bad, but you're going to get a sense of what your logo, when you tell somebody what your logo is or your branding is supposed to represent, this person is going to spit it back at you. And you're going to realize what it actually means. Then you'll be able to refine, then you'll be able to tune. One warning I would give is stay away from AI generating tools. Please stay away from AI generation because they are just stealing assets from everywhere else. If you want to use it as like as a brainstorming generation, great. But those assets that you're generating belong to somebody else. And it's not going to be original. And B, you're going to run into some problems later on down the road.
It's crazy hard to edit as well, by the way.
Yes.
Very difficult to actually augment, edit, or do anything with in the future.
Yes. Yeah, you want to change one line, you got to put the whole prompt back and then spit out 15 different versions of it because Dolly's not going to understand or Sora's not going to understand. So, try to be very minimal as you can, be intentional about your color choices. And for the love of everything holy, stay away from AI image generation tools, please.
Yeah, I tell him the guy who has an AI image generated in his Canva right now that ChatGPT helped him with this morning. Okay, lesson learned. I got it. I understand. Yep, I'm going to delete it. Nope, no, get rid of it. Yep. Well, listen, this has been helpful for me, Andy, and I love what you do in terms of creating the warm, welcoming, comforting, but also I think bold and convicting brand that Lux Digital Church has. I love the direction that we're headed in the future, and I love your expertise and willingness to learn and try new things for us, but also to just like dive into stuff, like willingness to dive into animation, the willingness to put stuff together, and to see what you and Greg specifically, but then also with the addition of Dalton helping out now, are able to spit out. The quality of the work is incredible. And so, guys, go learn. Oh, you know what? I do have one closing question, Andy.
Yeah.
This isn't the normal show. I do have one closing question. Where would someone go to learn? Like, let's just say hypothetically, okay, great. I have no know-how. I don't have the experience that you have. What's my first place to go and learn?
2 places. Number 1, YouTube University. YouTube is, that's a joke. Just go to YouTube. There are a lot of guys on YouTube that we trust in the church world. The Brady Shearers of the world are real good with like physical church things. But there's one guy in particular, Senpai Gaming, who is, he's got gaming in his name, and you'd think, Harris. Oh man, he's going to be a gamer. Yeah. But yeah, Harris. But in particular, he's been very influential on everything that we're doing at Lux. His minimalist style has his minimalist and bright style. A lot of people think minimalism and it's just dark with like a swinging lamp light bulb. He's very bright. He's very good at what he does. So I highly recommend going to him. But if you've got a little bit more, if you've got cash, a couple $100 that you want to spend, there's a site called Udemy, udemy.com, that has classes upon classes upon classes about everything. It's like masterclass, but it's also there's boot camps for coding, but there's just everything you could want. They particularly have a marketing section, and their marketing section has grown a ton in the past 2 or 3 years. And some of the things I've seen, I've taken Udemy classes for like coding boot camps way back. The stuff that they're doing in marketing and visuals right now, in particular, and also in animation. Very, very good. Classes are like, anywhere from $40 to $150 for like a complete 8 to 15 hour thing. And you're going to need to spend that amount of time thinking about it.
Love it. Love it. Well, you have some places that you can go and some resources that you can go and grab. I was literally like on the side, I was bringing up a palette generator, like looking for stuff over here. So I love that, and definitely going to be thinking a lot about, my own personal content, especially as you drive and lead Lux forward. Andy, thank you so much for coming on the show, being willing to share some of your expertise. And I think this is a unique episode in the fact that it is a lot more practical than some of our other episodes. So thank you for sharing from your expertise and your experience. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the NCMU podcast. We appreciate you. Would you mind leaving us like a rating and review? I think that helps people find us. But more importantly, like way more importantly than the rating and review, for me personally, is if you have a friend who's doing this or considering nerd culture ministry in some capacity, would you send it to them? We just want to equip and help people. And that's really the main goal above, likes and reviews and those sorts of things. So send it to somebody, would you? And here pretty soon, by the end of this season, we're going to be releasing some information about Nerd Culture Ministry Summit, the physical gathering that we do each year. We already announced that the next one is going to be in the spring of 2026. We should have information on that relatively soon because we're almost a year out already, which is kind of crazy. And then we're also going to have some information coming out about the gathering that's going on in about 8 or 9 months at Exponential West out in Central California. That's going to be happening this October, November. And so keep your ear to the ground and tuned for that, or just go check out Exponential West 2025. Pick up your ticket because we are going to be there at that. And I think Andy will be there at that too.
Yes,
I'm pretty
sir.
sure.
Looking forward to it.
I think me and Andy and Dalton, we're just like progressively forcing you further west, Andy.
I got to Colorado last year.
In the ocean.
Yep. Yeah. When can we go to Hawaii? Soon?
Yeah, NCMS 2027 Hawaii.
And Mount Kauai, yes.
Yeah, the budget will be broke and no one will be there but us,
Great.
but heck yeah, it's going to be a fun time.
Sounds awesome.
Okay, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to come back for the next one.